I, Jim Anderson, first met my wife Kate on my inaugural day at Chisholm Engineering. I was 18, freshly out of school exams, and feeling the jitters as I embarked on my new job. Despite having done well in my exams, I opted not to pursue college. I had my fill of education, and my parents couldn't afford university tuition for 3 years. Kate, the human resources assistant, was overseeing the company's induction process, and she was stunningly beautiful. It took me 3 months to gather the courage to ask her out, fully expecting a gentle rejection. To my surprise, she said yes and inquired about our plans. I hadn't even considered where we would go, I was so certain of rejection. Fast forward 20 years, and both Kate and I were still employed at the same company. We had been happily married for 18 of those years. I led the project management team, while Kate had climbed the ranks to become the director of human resources at the sizable engineering plant. Life was wonderful. We had 2 wonderful children, Amy, 16, and Jack, 14, who were thriving, a beautiful home, and a comfortable lifestyle. John Newcomb had been my best friend since childhood. We befriended Rob Turner in high school, and our friendship endured over the years, with Rob's younger brother Paul joining us later on. Paul was the only single among us. The rest of us were married, and our wives had formed close bonds over the years. I had recommended our company to Paul, and I was thrilled when he landed the role of Director of Operations. It was a lucrative position, and we celebrated his success. Paul confided that he was surprised to get the job, considering the tough interview with Old Man Chisholm. 6 months later, the 4 of us were having drinks on a Friday night when I mentioned Kate's recent aloofness and distraction. I thought the other wives might have noticed something and mentioned it to my friends, especially if it was related to health. However, they hadn't said anything. Concerned, the guys agreed that Kate's behavior was out of character. I admitted that the idea of an affair had crossed my mind, although the guys didn't believe it could be true. They asked what led me to think that way, but I struggled to articulate it. Something just felt off. At that moment, Paul unexpectedly launched into a vigorous defense of my wife, asserting that he worked closely with Kate and she would never entertain the thought of being involved with another man. He even went as far as calling me an idiot for entertaining such a notion. His passionate defense struck me as odd and out of character. I couldn't help but notice the intensity of his denial. I recalled his flirtatious behavior towards Kate in the past, the jokes, and the subtle touches. Additionally, they had gone on several business trips together since he joined the firm. As I stared at Paul, trying to process his sudden outburst, I noticed his guilty expression and agitated demeanor. Rob, knowing his brother well, also sensed something was amiss. Rob turned to his younger brother with a mix of disbelief and disappointment. "Please tell me you're not that stupid," he pleaded. Meanwhile, I couldn't contain my anger and frustration any longer. "So when did you start sleeping with my wife?" I erupted. Chaos ensued as we both rose from our seats, ready to confront each other physically. John and Rob intervened, managing to keep us apart. Rob then escorted his brother outside, urging him to leave. "But I'm your brother," Paul protested. "I don't care. Get out of here before I deal with you myself." "You're a stupid, arrogant prick," Rob retorted firmly. Despite John and Rob's attempts to offer reassurance and advise me to talk to Kate for clarity, I left for home in turmoil. When I arrived, Kate was seated at the kitchen table, tears streaming down her face. "I assume Paul called to warn you. Is it true?" I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. Kate didn't deny it but attempted to downplay the situation, claiming it wasn't an affair but rather a momentary lapse during a business trip. However, upon further probing, it became evident that their indiscretion involved more than just casual flirtation. Kate admitted to having sex with Paul, albeit under the influence of alcohol. I was unwavering in my response. Regardless of whether it happened once or multiple times, infidelity was unforgivable to me. Kate's apologies fell on deaf ears as I struggled to comprehend her betrayal. In the ensuing months, we separated and began the process of divorce. To add insult to injury, Kate resumed her relationship with Paul. This only confirmed my suspicions that their involvement went beyond a mere one-off encounter. My interactions with John and Rob became strained. It was uncomfortable to be around them, knowing their wives were friends with Kate. Although they reached out to offer support, I withdrew from social gatherings, feeling emotionally drained and financially strained. Losing my wife to one of my closest friends felt like divorcing my entire life. Kate was granted custody of our 2 children, and she retained ownership of our house. Despite knowing that Paul spent time there, I found myself still responsible for half of the mortgage payments along with child support. With my limited finances, all I could afford was a modest apartment in a less desirable area of town. Unfortunately, this made it challenging for the kids to visit, as they preferred to be near their friends who still lived near our old home. Initially, I tried to compensate by taking them on outings whenever I could, using any extra money I had for trips. We had always enjoyed spending time together like this since they were young. However, scheduling conflicts soon arose. They had plans for city breaks with Kate and Paul, school trips, and sleepovers with friends, leaving me with fewer opportunities to see them. In the past 2 months, I had hardly seen them at all and deeply missed their presence. If it hadn't been for their sports activities, I might have lost touch completely. I had always been involved in their sports, coaching them in football. Kate never attended their events before, preferring to have her own time. Now, both she and Paul were present at every game. During halftime at Amy's football match, I questioned Kate about her sudden interest in attending. She defensively claimed it was to support the kids during our breakup. As long as it's genuinely for their benefit and not to score points against me with your boyfriend, I responded. Don't be absurd. We're over, and I have no interest in you anymore, she retorted, clinging to Paul's arm as she spoke. I walked away, biting my lip to keep my frustration in check. Work became unbearable. I had to endure seeing Kate and Turner regularly. The constant teasing from his team members added to my discomfort. They seemed to revel in provoking me, but I managed to control my temper, though it was challenging. Fortunately, my own team, particularly a new colleague named Josh, provided some solace. Josh, an ex-military man in his late 20s, was incredibly adept at logistics despite his reserved demeanor. He had a quiet strength about him, and his ability to handle complex situations was nothing short of impressive. I was taken aback when Josh quietly questioned why I was tolerating so much negativity in my life. As I attempted to explain my frustrations and challenges, I couldn't help but feel foolish considering the difficulties he must have faced. With a solemn expression, Josh replied, "It boils down to a simple choice: either keep moving forward or resign yourself to stagnation." "Did the military teach you that?" I inquired. He burst into laughter. "Not a chance. It's far too profound." That's a quote I borrowed from the film Shawshank Redemption. The British infantry version would be, "Just get on with it, you wanker." I joined in his laughter, realizing it had been months since I genuinely laughed. A glimmer of hope emerged when Marie, an accountant at the firm, asked me out. Her invitation caught me off guard, as I hadn't considered dating. I had known her for years and was aware of her divorce. She was a kind-hearted person. We went on a few dates before Kate caught wind of it. I heard rumors that Kate was badmouthing her, calling her names, but I couldn't confirm anything. When Marie came over to meet the kids, their behavior was appalling. They initially ignored her and then repeated their mother's negative opinions of her. I was mortified by their actions and reprimanded them. Marie, being gentle-hearted, was deeply upset and insisted on leaving despite my apologies. As she departed, I instructed the kids to return to their mothers while struggling to contain my frustration. I attempted to reach out to Marie multiple times, and when she finally answered, she explained that she didn't want to create any problems within my family and believed it was best to end things sooner rather than later. I was devastated. It felt like no matter how hard I tried to do the right thing, I always ended up getting mistreated. I contemplated giving up until I recalled Josh's words. Amidst my efforts to find positivity in my life, Amy informed me that Paul had promised to buy her a car and provide driving lessons for her 17th birthday. I was furious, but insisted that I needed to discuss it with her mother first. Amy stormed off in frustration, prompting me to call Kate to inquire about how our 16-year-old daughter was about to receive a car without my knowledge. "You know I had planned to teach the kids to drive, and I don't think it's wise for her to have her own car yet." "Why not?" "It's a thoughtful gesture from Paul. Don't be sour just because you can't do it." "Are you okay with her driving around to parties with her friends?" Do you realize how many accidents involve kids her age? I wanted to ease Amy into it, let her use our cars until she was more responsible and we could trust her. Oh, I hadn't considered that. I suppose that's a valid concern. And why am I being left out of all the decisions concerning the kids in favor of your boyfriend? I'm their legal guardian. Wrong. We both are, you just happen to have custody. Next, you'll be telling me he wants to adopt them. Don't be absurd. I agree we should have consulted you first. I'll let her know we won't go through with it. So, I'll be the villain again, denying her a car while Paul remains the hero. Are you two intentionally trying to cause rifts between me and Amy, or is it just a talent you possess? Of course not. Paul is simply trying to connect with the kids and be supportive. Tell him to step back. He has you and seemingly my kids, but I'm their father, and I deserve a say in these decisions. I'm sorry, okay? Her words didn't match her tone, which sounded dismissive. How many times will you apologize for making selfish decisions? Try changing your behavior instead. Consider someone other than yourself. You and Turner seem to be a perfect match, both selfish and self-absorbed. What's that supposed to mean? You sound jealous, Jim. Remember, you're the one who left me. If you hadn't, we'd still be making these decisions together. And you're the one who cheated. Bringing that up is pointless. We need to prioritize the kids. I don't want them spoiled. They should learn to earn things and be independent. If Amy wants a car, she can get a part-time job and save up for it, and then we can help her, not just hand everything to her. I was frustrated by Kate's insinuation that I couldn't afford to contribute. That was because I was still covering the mortgage and child support. It was aggravating, especially considering Turner seemed to be spending so much time there. Dealing with Kate felt like banging my head against a wall repeatedly and getting nowhere. I had saved up and figured I could just about manage it. I called Kate to confirm the kids would be with her on Friday for the weekend, but surprise, surprise, they had a trip planned and forgot to inform me. I had to threaten Kate with family court before she agreed to let me visit them on Friday, prior to their departure on Saturday afternoon. Standing in our old kitchen, memories of happier times flooded back as the kids sat at the table and Kate stood at the bench, reminiscent of old times. I proposed a vacation, the one we had long planned as a family, a road trip through Europe during the summer. Amy wanted to visit as many European capitals as possible, while Jack was keen on via ferrata climbs and adventure sports in the Alps. It wouldn't be cheap, but I was willing to spend all I had and borrow the rest. The kids were excited, discussing the different places we could visit. Finally, a positive response, just as I had hoped. I noticed Kate looking pensive. That was supposed to be our family holiday, Jim. We planned it together. Well, we can't do it together now, and it's probably the last chance we have before Amy starts holidaying with friends. Just then, Paul entered the kitchen as if he owned the place. Jack eagerly told him about the trip. Paul nodded and said it sounded great, then added, I suppose we can do our holiday another time. All three turned to him in unison, asking, what holiday? Well, I was thinking of a summer-long trip across the United States. You picked the route, but it could include Disney and then jumping over to the West Coast, exploring LA and the Pacific Coast Highway. Excited, Amy asked, oh my God, that would be amazing. Could we visit New York too? I don't see why not. We could spend a few days there to break up the flights back to the UK. Jack immediately started asking about the rides at Universal and if they could go to Busch Gardens or Six Flags Park. He loved thrill rides. In that moment, I had never despised someone more. He knew he had me. I could hardly suggest a lesser trip when they were so thrilled. I quietly left the kitchen, doubting if anyone noticed my departure. As I reached my car door, Kate caught up with me. Jim, I'm sorry about your trip. Answer me truthfully, Kate. Is this the first you've heard of this holiday? Well, yes, I don't think Paul had the chance to tell us about it. I'm sorry it conflicts with your plans. You're not that naive, Kate. He made it up on the spot, and I guarantee nothing is booked. He's taking my kids away, and you're helping him. What did I do to deserve this? I'm sure it's just an innocent misunderstanding. I reached my breaking point. You keep apologizing and then repeating the same actions. Here's how it's going to be from now on. The next time I have any issue with access or being excluded from parenting my children, I will address it directly with your boyfriend. Are you threatening us, Jim? Talking to you is like talking to a brick wall, so yes, I'm taking a different approach and will face the consequences. You wouldn't harm us. Maybe not you, although you deserve it. But he's in for some payback. Both of you should think twice before putting someone in a position with nothing to lose, and that's exactly where you've put me. I glanced up to see Paul at the door. I half expected him to attack me, being bigger, but he retreated inside without a word. I noticed the disappointment on Kate's face, quickly concealed. A real man doesn't resort to threats, she retorted. No, it seems he just runs away, I replied, regaining my composure. Are you trying to win their affection at my expense? They're my kids, not his. I'd like to believe I'm a good father. You should want me involved instead of playing these pathetic games. Kate seemed speechless. It's not, you are. This shouldn't be a competition, but let's face it, you've won, I've lost. You got the house, the money, our friends, the wealthy boyfriend, and the kids. But your victory doesn't mean I have to lose every time, Kate. The old Kate would have realized that long before me. She stood there, mouth agape, unable to respond. For God's sake, I give up. I want to speak to the kids tomorrow without your boyfriend present. I stormed out, leaving Kate standing there looking stunned. I made sure Turner wasn't there before entering. The kids were slumped on the couch in the living room, while Kate stood at the doorway. Don't worry, I won't take up much of your time. There was no verbal response, but Jack managed to look up at me. I know the breakup is tough on both of you, and I want to remind you how much I love you. Your mom loves you too, and that will never change. Kate appeared surprised that I included her. But I don't understand what's happening with you guys. You used to be great kids, but now you've developed this snooty attitude like nothing is good enough. I care about you both deeply, but I refuse to be strung along anymore. If you want to move forward with your mom and Paul, I'll step back. If you're after material things and luxurious vacations, then Paul is your guy. What I won't do is keep showing up every weekend to hear flimsy excuses about being too busy. Kate attempted to interject, I hardly think. Yeah, well, I've heard enough of what you think. This might be one of the last chances I get to speak to my kids. I may not be able to buy you extravagant gifts like he does, but I still want to spend time with you, doing sports, going camping, whatever you're interested in. I know it's not as flashy as Florida or wherever, but it would be us together. And before you know it, you'll both be off to college. Still, there was no response, just awkward glances and fidgeting. The way you treated Marie was unacceptable. What gave you the right to treat someone that way? That's not how we raised you. I've never been more embarrassed by my own family. I hope you're all happy. She wants nothing to do with me now. Kate bristled at that. She wasn't good enough, she. Really, Kate? What did she ever do to you? She's a lovely person who agreed to go out with me. You were all over your new lover when we were married, and I never badmouthed him. But congratulations, you've scared her off, and now I'm dealing with the aftermath. I winced, realizing I'd sworn in front of the kids. Both Amy and Jack looked shocked. That information seemed to be news to them. Turning back to Kate, and another thing, thanks to Turner's constant reminders about money, I checked with the child maintenance agency. They think I should have offset the mortgage against some of the child support, so expect a reassessment. Maybe Loverboy can chip in for the house he seems to be living in. Amy spoke up, looking at her mom, Dad's still paying. Her voice trailed off, and Kate resembled a goldfish again. The kids didn't look much better. It seemed like I wouldn't get a response from any of them. Frustrated, I stood up, muttered something about letting me know, and left. Back at my small flat, I wondered if I could afford to move. I hadn't mentioned to Kate that my lawyer suggested continuing with the mortgage payments and reducing the child support. It ensured a roof over my kids' heads, and he believed it might turn out to be a wise investment as property prices were soaring. Once Jack moved out in a few years, she'd either have to sell or buy me out. My phone rang, and I braced myself for whatever new challenge life had in store for me. It was Amy on the line, with Jack on speaker. Amy rushed through her words, explaining they realized they owed me 6 weekends and 4 weeks of vacation. They wanted to know if I still wanted to go on the European tour we had always talked about, including stops in the Black Forest, the Alps, and Italy. Of course I remember those places, I replied. And it'll definitely be warmer than Scotland. And Dad, Amy continued, we're sorry about how we acted. Mom never mentioned that she was the one who cheated. We thought it was you, maybe with Marie. And Paul made it seem like he was taking care of everything after you left us. I don't care about that, I assured them. All I want is to have my kids back again. Jack chimed in, you're wrong about Paul. We don't really like him, he's a jerk. I tried to keep a straight face. That's not the impression you gave, Jack. We thought that if you weren't seeing us, you might come back, Jack admitted. That's never going to happen, Jack. Things are over between me and your mom, but I'll always be here for you both. Amy spoke up, Dad, we think Mom feels the same way. Paul isn't around much, and they argue a lot, mostly about you. I find that hard to believe, I replied. Your mom has been difficult to deal with since we split. I'd even go as far as to say she hates me. I don't think so, Dad. I think she knows she made a mistake. I sat in Kate's human resources office at work, my nose bleeding and trying not to stain the expensive carpet. Kate was livid when she saw me. Jim, fighting at work is gross misconduct. I'll have to dismiss you. What's the matter, afraid of losing out on the child support? I retorted. It's pathetic, grown men fighting, Kate snapped. We had to call an ambulance for Bob. Good, he deserved it, I muttered. Considering it was 3 against 1, I'd say I did quite well. Grow up, Jim. This is a disaster, Kate exclaimed. It's so bad that the old man is coming in. Just then, Turner burst into the room, sporting a swollen lip and bruised cheek. He immediately demanded that the police be called and that I be instantly dismissed for assaulting him and half of his team. I turned to Kate. Do you want to hear what actually happened before you decide to sack me? Isn't that your job, after all? A deep voice filled the room. I do. I turned to see Old Man Chisholm, the chairman of Chisholm Engineering, standing there, accompanied by Josh. Despite rarely being at the factory these days, he still commanded respect and authority. Turner began his explanation. It was an unprovoked attack in the canteen against me and 2 of my team. An unprovoked attack by one man taking on 3 seems a bit odd, don't you think? Is that what happened, Jim? I interjected. Well, I probably swung first, but seeing as I was outnumbered, I wasn't going to wait around, I admitted. I thought I saw a hint of amusement in Chisholm's expression. Kate chimed in, we have no option but to dismiss you and involve the police, Jim. You've already threatened Paul, I heard it myself. Nothing justifies assault, no matter what someone might say. Are you not going to ask what provoked it? I questioned. I assume it's jealousy over mine and Paul's relationship, Kate responded. No, it's been months of harassment by him and his department, I clarified. Paul retorted almost angrily, that's total rubbish and just a pathetic excuse. At that moment, Josh spoke up, I can confirm everything Jim said is true. Paul directed a disdainful look at Josh, who are you? If you know what's good for you, you'll stay out of other people's business. Chisholm intervened, Josh is my grandson, and I'd trust him over someone like you any day. To support my claims, I retrieved my phone and played a recording. Hey Cucky, our boss was late in this morning. He was probably giving your missus a good seeing too. The atmosphere in the room turned uncomfortable as everyone listened, including Kate shooting a glare at Turner. I continued playing another recording. You do know she was involved with him for months before you separated. Did you know? Are you one of those who enjoy seeing your wife with another man? Kate's face flushed with embarrassment as Turner protested, this is utter nonsense. Skipping to another recording, I played Turner's voice. It's a shame you were late for work all those times, Jim, and you didn't get the manager's role. I looked at Kate. Have you ever known me to be late for work? He blocked it and admitted to it, telling me to move away as it would happen every time. Playing the canteen recording next, we heard Bob Marsden's voice. Paul says she's a great lay and a real go-getter. Once he's had his fun, we're going to have a little party with all the boys. We might even involve your cute little daughter. The sound of scuffling ensued before the recording cut off. It was the last comment that triggered my reaction. Despite everything, you're still the mother of my kids, and mentioning Amy. I trailed off. Kate shot a furious look at Turner, who shifted uncomfortably. I didn't know that idiot Bob was going to say that. He was just trying to provoke him. Old man Chisholm addressed the situation sternly. Officially, everyone involved is suspended pending investigation and disciplinary hearings. Unofficially, Turner, get out of my building along with your associates. Anyone calling the police will be blacklisted from the industry. Your time here was already limited, the worst decision I've ever made. Don't even think about crossing me, you'll regret it. He motioned to a security guard who escorted Turner out of the building. Turning to me, Chisholm continued, given the circumstances, you handled it well, but you should have come to me. Go home, Jim, clean up. Kate, we need to talk. I can't believe such behavior went unnoticed. As the HR director, you should have been aware of what was happening. Tears streamed down Kate's cheeks as she protested, you know it's not true, Jim. It wasn't months, it was a one-time mistake, and I regretted it immediately. I left with Josh, expressing gratitude for his support and offering to buy him a drink. I'd love to, but I have a regiment thing on Sunday. I usually find solace in the hills, but duty calls, Josh explained. And about Chisholm being my granddad, I didn't want to exploit that. I was planning to inform him about your situation, but I felt you needed to find your own solution first, and then I'd step in. After all, he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Chuckling, I replied, that's an old army quote, Shakespeare's Henry V, right? A bit highbrow for the rest of us. Josh nodded, exactly, band of brothers. They used it in officer training, a bit too sophisticated for us grunts. Later that night, Kate visited my flat. I reluctantly let her in and inquired about her conversation with Chisholm. He confirmed that Paul and the two involved in the fight will be dismissed. Others in the team admitted to your harassment and implicated Paul. I received a reprimand and a final written warning, Kate explained. Are they reporting the fight to the police? I asked. No, the guys involved admitted to the harassment and want to keep it quiet. They're claiming it was just a disagreement that escalated, Kate replied. Did you confront Turner, ask him why? I pressed. He wanted you gone because he thought I was still in love with you. He said the conversations were meant to provoke you and get you fired, but you didn't take the bait, you just ignored them, Kate revealed. Is he out of his mind? You don't cheat on someone, lie to them, and treat them poorly if you love them. You've been treating me like garbage for months. I'd say you even derive pleasure from causing me pain, I responded, frustration evident in my tone. Kate began sobbing uncontrollably. None of this was supposed to happen. It was a mistake, and then you weren't supposed to find out, and you weren't supposed to leave me. Everything went wrong. I thought if you missed the kids and your life was miserable, you might give me another chance, but it didn't happen. Paul was more about trying to make you jealous than anything else. I don't have any real feelings for him. So, you acted poorly because you wanted me back? Seriously, Kate? You need to take responsibility for your actions. You caused all of this. I don't even recognize you anymore. The woman I married was kind and caring. Where did she go? I messed everything up. When I realized you weren't coming back and with the divorce, I thought I had to see it through. The kids, our friends, and my family wouldn't believe what I had done. John and Rob refused to be in the same room as us. I haven't seen their wives or families in months. I had to prove I could make it work with him, otherwise, I had thrown everything away for nothing. I had to prove I made the right decision and that he was the better man. My life with Paul had to be perfect, and the more I belittled you, the better my choices would seem. I tried to make it seem like a love affair, but it was never that. He was arrogant and selfish, but by then, there was no turning back. What a mess, and you involved the kids in all of this. I'm so sorry. I needed to try and make things right, but I didn't know how. I didn't realize how much it affected your relationship with them. Another apology, great. I've heard what you said. I will change my actions so I don't have to keep apologizing. At least it's over with him. He's gone now, and I need you. The kids need you. They're really angry with me. I thought maybe we could try again. I've never stopped loving you. I couldn't believe it. I was certain she hated me. It gave me pause for thought, but not for long. There's no way back, Kate. Not for me. The bond and trust we had are gone. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just trying to cope and get my life back on track. I met John and Rob for a pint on Sunday morning. They berated me for not responding to all of their calls and texts. I tried to explain why. Our wives were close, and Paul was Rob's brother, after all. Rob chuckled. He's no brother of mine. I haven't spoken to that jerk since that night in the pub. It's probably for the best, or else I'd knock his lights out. John explained that the wives hadn't seen much of Kate initially, but they were back in touch now. They mentioned that Kate regretted everything and thought if she hadn't started seeing Paul again and had been more reasonable, we might have gotten back together. I wasn't entirely convinced, but it was good to catch up with friends again. As we chatted about other aspects of our lives, I glanced up at the TV screen and saw Josh in full dress uniform of the Royal Fusiliers, laying a wreath at the cenotaph in front of royalty and dignitaries. He was adorned with an array of medals on his chest. The commentary explained how Josh had won the Victoria Cross, rescuing fellow Fusiliers under heavy fire and repeatedly going back, before being knocked unconscious by a rocket-propelled grenade. The struggles Josh and others endured during recuperation left me staggered. My own troubles seemed trivial in comparison. Life improved significantly once Kate stopped being difficult. I saw the kids more than scheduled, attended all their sports events, and enjoyed informal shared custody where they stayed whenever they wanted. The child maintenance service reduced my payments, offsetting the mortgage as they suggested. I received a promotion and a substantial bonus at work, thanks to Chisholm's desire to avoid potential legal issues. I rekindled old hobbies and planned to travel more. So, it was quite surprising when Marie showed up at my new terraced cottage, considering we hadn't spoken in months. I cautiously invited her in. "What brings you here, Marie?" "I'm here at Amy and Jack's request, Jim." They apologized and explained everything. "Amy mentioned you weren't dating anyone." "How did they even get your number?" "I suspect Kate gave it to them. I called her, and she confirmed what the kids said and accepted that we both needed to move on." Things were getting surreal. "It seems your kids and ex-wife think highly of you, Jim. They believe I'd be foolish not to go out with you." "Sliced bread? That's a bit much, don't you think? Maybe the best thing since the steam engine. Sorry, it's an engineering thing. I'd go for the calculator or computers. I am an accountant, after all. Either way, I'd like to find out for myself, Jim." "Yeah, I'd like that too, Marie. Very much." Our relationship blossomed from friendship and companionship to passion and intimacy, all the things money can't buy. Who knows where we'll end up, but so far, it's going well. Did I just get lucky? Maybe. But I'd like to think I stopped being a victim and learned to stand up for myself. So far, the results have been great. However, I won't take anything for granted. Life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.